I can. So I'm going to hit record so that we can put this up. Thank you for coming to our AVID collaboration workshop. I'm Bethany Mevis. I teach at Mountain View. I am going to be teaching 6th grade humanities this year after teaching math last year. So this is my assistant. And then the last 3 years I've looped with my AVID kids from 6th, 7th to 8th grade. And this year I will be teaching 6th grade AVID with Leah.
And I am Leah Molson. I am also at Mountain View teaching 6th grade humanities and 6th grade the AVID elective. I am also the AVID coordinator. I'm super excited because this is my first year getting to teach the elective class. I've been the coordinator for the last 7 years. So it's fun to step into a new role with AVID. I'm also an AVID staff developer for the content area writing strand.
And just so you know, we received some feedback that when you do like a full presentation screen share, it makes it hard to see people's faces. And so we've decided to keep this not full screen this time.
Okay, so our agenda for today, the plan is that we are going to use the first hour or so just to kind of share information with you, have some conversations. So we're going to go through these activities. We'll do some locker intros, talk about tutorials, share some digital resources with you and some planning resources. And then Danica's going to pop in towards the end of that first hour and do a little Q&A. So if you have some questions that are just burning questions that maybe we're not able to answer, or you want to hear more from the district side, hold on to those, write them down on a sticky note or something, and save those for when she comes in. And then the last 2 hours, hopefully 2 hours, hour and a half at least, for sure, is going to be plan time for you. So we're gonna throw a bunch of resources at you, and then you'll just have time to kind of peruse through those. We can put you into breakout rooms if you want to work with somebody either from your school or somebody that's doing the same grade level as you, or has taught the same grade level. However we want to work that, you guys can just tell us how you want to be in breakout rooms, and then we'll also be here. But during that time, you are not required to be in the Zoom. So if you want to just log off and do your 2 hours on your time, you are welcome to do that as well, which you'll get paid for the 3 hours of time. At the bottom of the agenda is a resource folder. So everything that is in our slideshow that is underlined is a direct hyperlink to that resource, but also feedback from last week is people were like, hey, it'd be really nice to just be able to download the entire folder and have that instead of having all these, having 50 individual links, and that way you'll get it all organized. So if you just click on that resource folder, you can put that into your drive, and that way you have all of the links that are also going to be linked throughout the presentation.
So we thought we would get started with a little Bitmoji virtual locker. So I found this one on Teachers Pay Teachers. Leah mentioned that we have another one linked that's not linked to Teachers Pay Teachers, but you can also use the hyperlink in here to get the template if you like this setup. So we liked this idea for a quick getting to know you, and because at least in middle school, kids get really excited to decorate their lockers every year. So we liked our chance to decorate our own lockers. So there's my Bitmoji, and I just included my running shoes because I'm a runner. I'm lived in California for 6 years. I included a palm tree because, as my 5-year-old likes to say, I'm obsessed with palm trees. And love Disneyland, so I included a Disneyland water bottle in my locker.
And I'm originally from New Orleans, and so I had to include some Mardi Gras beads in mine. I'm a huge LSU fan, so I had my little tiger on there. We are the national champions currently, so super excited about that. You can always find me with a cup of chai tea, and so I've got that in there, and then just a few other little fun tidbits about me.
So we would like for you guys, we had talked about having you make your own Bitmoji lockers and thought it'll take a little bit of time. So instead, we're going to go around and ask you to introduce yourself, what school you're at currently, what you're teaching, and then what item you would definitely include in your virtual locker.
Okay. So Bethany, are you going to unshare your screen?
Do you want me to? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. That way we just see their
faces.
See people. All
right.
Excellent. All right. So we're going to start. We're just going to go through the grid on here. So Jeff, you are first. Oh, you're muted. Perfect.
Thanks. Jeff Buckingham. I am at Beaverton High School. I'm going to be an AVID 9 teacher. This is my 3rd year teaching AVID. And then I would include a pair of binoculars because I like to go out and bird every once in a while, and especially this summer where I am pent up inside a lot.
All right, Claudia.
Hi, I'm Claudia McClellan, Westview High School. AVID 10th graders. This is my 2nd year in AVID, and I'm also a Spanish teacher. Thank you for seeing me today. I'm excited.
Cool. And what would you put in your locker?
Oh my goodness. I put in my locker football stuff, golf, things I like to do, yoga stuff, my mat always with me and my water. Yeah, things like that.
Nice.
Awesome. Thanks, Claudia.
All right. Perfect. Julie.
Hi, I'm Julie Clay, and I teach at Five Oaks Middle School. I teach 6th grade science and 6th grade AVID elective. I think this is my 4th year. It could be my 5th, but I think it's their 4th. And in my locker, I would for sure have anything Disneyland. So Bethany, I'm excited to see that there's someone else as crazy as me. I try and go. This sounds ridiculous, but every June it's like I made it through the school year, and then obviously that didn't get to happen this year. So have to save that for next year.
We went in February and we still had 1 ticket from our 3-day passes, and hanging out there.
All right, Case, you were up.
Yeah, hi. I'm Keith. I teach 8th grade science at Solar Middle School and then also 8th grade AVID. I think this is my 4th year teaching AVID, and in my locker, I think I try to cram a bicycle in there. I'm big into cycling, so that's what I try to put in.
That's awesome. All right, Becky.
Sorry. Hi, Katie. I'm so excited to see you. I'm Becky Adkins. I teach at Mountain View with Bethany and Leah. I'm an 8th grade science teacher and a 7th grade. I'll be doing 7th grade AVID this year. This is my 2nd year doing the AVID elective. Jeff, I would also include some binoculars because I also bird, and I'm starting to get my kids into it too, which is pretty cool. And I'd put my surfboard in. So.
All right, Melissa.
Hi, I'm Melissa Armstrong, and I'm at Beaverton High School, and I'm going to be teaching AVID 10. This is my 6th year, so my 2nd loop with AVID students, and I'm also co-AVID coordinator with Jessica. And in my locker, I would definitely have running shoes also, and my water bottle.
All right, Michael.
Gotta make sure I'm unmuted. Michael Wolf. I teach at Westview. This will be my 3rd year, so I have AVID 11 with this group, and my locker would definitely have a basketball in it. I am the boys basketball coach at Westview, and it has been as my wife and my kids like to say, a dominant factor in my life. So
that's awesome. All right, Allison.
So I'm Allison McCarthy. I teach at Highland Park Middle School. I'm going down to teach 6th grade math this year, I think. Yeah, never been
Wow.
and I'm doing AVID 8th grade. This is my 3rd year teaching AVID. And we got a new puppy this year, like in June. So I'd probably just have pictures of my puppy all over my locker.
Very cute. Okay, and Jessica just shared that she is not, that her sound isn't working. So she is at BHS, 7 years with AVID, an elective teacher and co-coordinator. Yeah, obsessed with Disneyland. We have another Disney fanatic. Oh, look. Oh,
I have that one too. I have that one. Did you do the series? Yeah, you did.
that is awesome.
Awesome.
Oh my gosh, you need to chat.
I know. Let's be
Very cool.
friends.
Yes. All right, Katie.
All right, I'm Katie Pearson. I'm at Cedar Park, but I was in Mountain View for 10 years, so it's super good to see my Mountain View people. I teach 8th grade humanities, 8th grade AVID Elective, and I'm also a co-coordinator. And what would I have in my locker? I would have my kayak and my garden pruners, because those are the 2 things that I need.
Nice. All right, Chris.
Hi, I am at Loa High School, and I teach Spanish and then AVID 9 and AVID 12. I just graduated a class of seniors, and so I'm looping back around and starting with freshmen again. We don't usually have people teaching 2, but a teacher had left, and those kids were they were on their 3rd AVID teacher at sophomore year, and I was like, that's it, I'm taking these guys. And so the ones that'll be seniors this year I kind of inherited, and they're awesome, but I didn't want them to go through another change. And I am not showing my picture today because I lost my most important thing, my puppy, my little baby today, so I have cry eyes. And I would probably put garden tools or Mexican food, Sun River, like Dutch Brothers. I'd probably have a Dutch Brothers hydro flask, because we have one right down the street, and that's a thing that I do with my kids sometimes when I'm taking them to speak somewhere or whatever. We'll zip through Dutch Bros and grab a drink, and that's our thing. So
Nice. Thank you. All right, Taylor.
Hey, I'm Taylor at Highland Park. I teach 6th grade and 7th grade AVID this year, plus 6th grade humanities. Allison's my teammate. I'm excited this year. I don't know if she is.
Nice.
And then in my locker, I would have probably some Blazer gear, maybe pictures of Dame everywhere.
Yes.
That's not creepy, but lots of pictures of Dame. And then maybe something bubble tea related. My wife just went and got this for me. So.
Very cool. All right, Laura.
I also teach at Aloha High School, and I don't know what else I'm teaching this year yet. Probably AP Bio at least, and I'll have 10th grade AVID. It's my 2nd year with AVID, and I would also have my locker decorated with Blazer gear this year.
Excellent. And they're on a roll right now, so it's awesome. Very cool. All right, Jamie.
Okay, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good. I'm Jamie Cooper. I'm at Five Oaks. I teach 8th grade AVID Elective, and I'm the AVID coordinator, and I teach AGS 1. This is like my, however long we've been doing it, 6 years, 7 years, something like that. My locker would have all the bright rainbow colors, and lots of Blazer gear, and probably pictures of my kids. I just had a baby in or in April, and took leave, and I'm coming back, so I probably have pictures of my kids.
Awesome. All right. And is it Hebak?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So hi everyone. My name is Hibak Adin. I am over at Sunset High School. I teach chemistry there, and this will be my first year doing AVID, so I'll be doing AVID 9. So I'm looking forward to all the things that I can learn today. Things that I would put in my locker would be things that bring me comfort. So an extra pair of shoes that are pretty comfortable, some candles, some flowers, a plant if it would survive in there. And yeah.
Nice. Excellent. Welcome to the AVID family. That's awesome.
Thank you.
All right. And Allison.
Hi. So I did already.
I'm Allison. I'm over at Merlo Station High School, and this will be my first year teaching the AVID elective for 9-10. And so I'm also thrilled to be here and learn about all AVID things. And then in my locker, I'm super excited about the blazers. But also I think I would have lots of pictures of just general, like waterfalls, hiking adventures, the out of doors. And then that'd be about it. And probably I'm always cold. So some sort of warm sweater that I'm leaving there in my locker.
Nice. Excellent. Thanks. Welcome to the family to you as well. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, and I teach AGS 1.
Oh, cool.
And AGS 2. So I'm a math teacher in addition to the AVID elective this year.
Awesome.
Thanks.
All righty. Well, thank you guys for doing that. And like we said, we do have, you've got the link to one of the lockers, and then I'm going to put the blue locker again. Or Bethany, if it's not letting me copy it, if you're able to do that while I go on to the next thing, the blue locker link. Yep. Perfect. Okay. So we're looking at slide 7 on our PowerPoint if you're following along with us.
I'll share the locker thing and then I'll screen back up.
Perfect. Okay. So we're going to first talk about tutorials. So for those of you who've maybe been getting some emails from AVID or just have heard through the grapevine, tutorials have gone through a revamping this year. So there's a whole new guidebook that you have access to, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But there have been some key changes that we wanted to highlight. So if you would click on that link, the hyperlink, the one-pager that's listed there, and just take a couple of minutes to read through that and think about what are you noticing? What are some things that stand out? What are you like, oh my gosh, yay, I'm so excited? Or, oh, what is this gonna do? And then be thinking about, like, how does this change how you prep your kids? And then who else needs to have this information? And so we'll just read. We'll do like a 2-minute read and then check in and then just have a little conversation about that, kind of point out some things. All right. What are some things that are popping out to you? So feel free to either, you can unmute yourself and share, or you can share in the chat.
I like that they're not taking the 3-column notes mandatory anymore, because that for a lot of kids was a waste of time if they didn't have that class or they didn't understand the process, because it wasn't something that they had done. So it was oftentimes not super valuable for them.
Yeah, agreed. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the next step.
One of
It
the
seems a little bit, oh,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
One of the things that it makes me wonder is like optional taking notes. To me, is very important. They had their notes not being optional, but I don't know. It's kind of try to process how we can transition this new way to do it things, you know, versus to be negative. I want to be positive. But to me, you have to take notes to be able to kind of remember what the steps or where you get stuck before in the question and things like that, you know. I don't know.
Well, the kids are still taking the presenter, so there's still somebody copying the notes for the presenter, and they're doing the notes on the board. It's just the participants in the circle, they don't have to copy the 3-column notes, especially if it's not something they can, especially if it's a class that they have, or they can take their own notes out and they can do like the phase 2 and 3 and interact with their own notes. But it's just they don't have to have the exact copy that's on the board like they've had in the past.
I feel like the process seems a little bit more flexible and authentic, like more like, you know, we're in this to help each other. Here's something that I'm coming to talk about. Let's talk about my problem and you guys can ask me questions. It just feels more natural. I mean, you're gonna have to teach it in a different kind of a way, but the structure was nice because it helped kids go through those things, but having some like authenticity and flexibility seems like it might help us get there.
Yeah, very true. Jessica put in the chat, it's more like a study group in college. Yeah.
I feel like there's a little more robust structure to the closure as well. So many times I felt like tutorials, the back end got crammed for the expense of the middle and the beginning, just as the clock is ticking to the end of the period. And sometimes even their reflections and their closure were homework assignments, and the quality of that work was never as good as when there was more time to wrap up and create that closure in class. And then giving them that, and I think it goes back to the comment about flexibility, giving them some options to sort of debrief and talk about it and get some closure and then go back and write about it. And it's just more robust writing around the closure and reflection.
Yeah.
I like the idea of practicing research skills when students are helping the presenter. I think it's important to note that that's like what they are doing when they're helping the presenter.
That's a good way of framing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To pull up the resources.
Yeah, I was saying, any other thoughts or questions or?
I think that the 60 seconds is better than the 30 seconds. The 30 seconds was pretty skimpy. And having them have the 60-second speaking synthesis at the end, I think validates that speaking part of you need to talk about it. You need to tell us what your problem is, be really clear where your point of confusion is, and then tell us what you learned or how you've solved that. They can BS for 60 seconds pretty easy.
But I also think the end of tutorials was like, you know, sometimes kids struggle to just get to the end and then they were like, whew, I did it, I'm done. But having like a synthesis can help you, you know, help kids figure out what they learned or what they didn't learn or where they struggled, and instead of just like finishing, it's about really thinking about what they learned through that process and where they're going to go next. And that, again, makes it more authentic.
All right. So we're going to keep going and kind of look through the resources. So there's 2 links. And again, you can either you can access things through the slideshow, or you can, at the beginning of the slideshow there in the agenda slide, there's a link to our shared Google folder that you can just download straight into your drive. But if you click on the tutorial poster, that'll take you to a PDF of the new poster, and so you can kind of see how the 10 steps are laid out. And then the second handout goes through those 10 steps and really talks about them. So they really, one of the things they tried to do is make it more student-centered. Before it was more like, it was just sort of ambiguous and, you know, like this person's doing this and this person this. Now it's really like, it's about the kids and kind of what they're doing and their learning. This is the note-taking piece. I just put it in here just so you can see from AVID their perspective on kind of why they made the change with the note-taking piece. And so you're welcome to read through that as you're kind of going through things. But basically, just like it said in the handout, the one-pager, they can take notes just like the presenter is presenting, and they can work through their own notes, or they can just really focus on the question asking and being a good participant. I think for a lot of kids, taking notes and trying to ask questions was really difficult for them because they're so focused on taking the notes because they knew they had to have those, that they were forgetting that, oh yeah, the process is about asking the questions. And so they were kind of getting left out of that part, or it was, you know, they were falling behind with this. So I think this does, like many of you brought up, it does make it more authentic if the kids are really focusing on the question asking piece. All right. So the new tutorial guide, you can link to it there where it says new tutorial guide. That will take you to the AVID page. So some of you may know this already, but every time AVID comes out with a new book, for the first year that book is available, anybody can download it for free on the website instead of paying the $80 or taking a PATH training and getting the book. So right now, everybody can download the tutorial guide for free. You get the PDF of it. I don't know about you, but I probably won't have time to read through all 300 to 400 pages that are in there before school starts. So I kind of picked out the highlights of some things that were important based on the website, and just some things that I had looked up or had been linked to us. It's some things that we went through in Digital XP training this year, which was the alternative to Summer Institute. So I kind of put some highlights for you. And so this would, you know, just kind of help you kind of get started. So the first big key is that there are new videos. Many of us who have been doing AVID for the last couple of years, we have seen Jason and Jennifer forever. And many of us are ready to see them graduate and move on and have some new faces. And so we have, there are 6 new videos. There's 2 overview videos, one's shorter, one's longer. And then there are 4 different grade level videos in different subject areas. And so those will be very helpful with training your kids and showing them how tutorials look. So it's just nice to have some updated videos. There are also new brain teasers, because many of our kids have done those brain teasers already when we're practicing tutorials. And so there is a link to those. The name tense is something that they are asking to include in the tutorial process. So that link has 3 different name tents that you can print out, and they're the trifold. So you do them on trifold cardstock. And so what's facing the kids, there's 3 different resource lists. So it's like sentence stems and question starters and those types of things. So that way kids have super easy access to those as they are sitting in their groups. Okay. And then there's just a bunch of other resources. So roles and responsibilities, some updated stems, and some inquiry process stems. And then there were some cool things I thought about the overcoming challenges and goal setting with you and kind of having the kids work through some of those scenarios. They've also done a standards-based grading, TRF, so it looks a little bit different, doesn't have the points necessarily added in that. And then there's also a piece on non-math initial questions because for a lot of kids, they automatically gravitate towards math because it's easy to write a TRF based on those. And so sometimes it's good to show kids, hey, this is how you could do a TRF in another class. Okay. All right, whew, I just threw a lot at you. Any questions about any of these things or?
I have a question.
Okay.
Well, of course, I'm wondering like what this is all going to look like virtually. So,
yes,
like
so
the name tents are so cool, and I'm wondering if there's, I don't know. I guess students can like pull them up on a screen, but I'm imagining maybe we'll talk about that.
Yeah, name tents will probably not happen, at least until we go back hybrid, if that happens. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit about what tutorials are going to look like or could look like this year in a little bit. All right, Bethany, you want to move on to the next?
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen in a second so we can see each other's faces again. But we wanted to take a little bit of time and talk about what worked well for you in the spring and what you would do differently coming up, or what you will do differently in the fall. So I'm gonna stop sharing, and then you can put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and share what went well in the spring for you in your AVID classes, and then what are you going to do differently? Just free for all.
It could also be something that went well in your content area that you're like, oh, this would be really cool for to add into our AVID classes.
No, AVID, no, Leah, AVID only.
It's AVID only.
More.
I don't know about everyone else, but I feel like this is completely different because I had kids checking out right and left in the spring. I had seniors, so they were like, see ya, and then they would just check in for the once a week Zoom and text me all the time with questions on how to get into their colleges and what they needed to do. So like, and I'm still getting those texts. I got one 2 days ago that was like, when do they get the copy of the diploma? And I'm like, okay, the screenshot you just sent me says you can make a copy of the diploma and give it to PCC. You're going to have to learn to read. So, I mean, so with my seniors, they kind of were gone. And my juniors had quite a lot of that same thing where they were just kind of, they were really checking out. I mean, I had probably 5 kids who finished really strong and did all that stuff. And then as a result, asked if I would write them a letter of recommendation. I was like, yes, I will, because you finished the year. But yeah, I had a lot of they were just out. They were out once the grade physically changed to a pass and they understood that they were passing. And it took some of them longer to catch on than others. But once they got that, they were done. They were out. And I don't know if you all had that same experience, but was my experience. So the things that worked and stuff only worked for a few kids. So I really have no frame of reference of what this coming year is going to look like.
Like I'm seeing a couple of things in the chat. So Jessica is saying the students stayed connected and came to her and learned to advocate for themselves, which is awesome. saw a little bit of that too with kids, like sending direct emails if they needed help. And then Katie says weekly check-ins with how they're doing emotionally and with school. Katie, by the way, your check-in was awesome. I'm using it now. I love it. And with goal setting for the week and a reflection on Friday. And then Jamie said she went on leave right at the beginning of April, but planning on being a learner and modeling what it looks like to take risks and learn from mistakes, which I think it's going to be a lot of that this year. Any other went well?
Yeah, one of the things that worked from in language arts classes for me was trying to use some online discussion tools. So mostly Canvas for my language arts class, and I had used them in the past, but they became central to promote conversations amongst the kids in an asynchronous environment, so that they were required to make some comments to discussion posts, whether it's a question or something that they all had to read. And then the second part of the assignment was they had to respond to a certain number of their classmates' posts as well. So trying to incorporate that into AVID in the spring was a little bit of a challenge. But again, for the kids who didn't feel comfortable speaking in those digital environments or didn't want to be stuck in a Zoom or didn't have to, so they didn't show up, because all those challenges for engagement, I think using some of the digital resources, especially Canvas, was really helpful. And then tutorials were a scramble, I think, as most things were with the spring and digital learning, and we ended up with a lot of scrambled eggs, unfortunately. But one thing that was exciting to see is that on the days that I opened our Zoom class for optional asynchronous or sort of optional synchronous attendance, the kids who did show up, and there were days that were 4 or 5, some days 3. I tried to start it out by doing some non-content stuff like jackpot games, just to get the kids comfortable engaging with each other online and having some fun. That worked for about 2 weeks, and they realized they were all going to pass. But the days in which there was a small group of kids who were connected to each other, and they found a classmate who was really struggling. I think like the one that stands out to me was a digital interactive notebook in chemistry, and like 3 of the kids really got it, and 1 kid was like ready to throw his computer through the wall. And I just sat and watched them spend an hour together going through it. And so those small group environments where they're comfortable, especially as we all know it's sort of AVID, as much as we want to avoid clickiness, certain kids just feel more comfortable working with each other. And I think there's got to be a way to manually, intentionally create that as often as we can digitally.
Yeah.
That's super important.
Yeah. Anyone else? Katie, there's some requests to see your weekly check-in form. So good. And then discussion using video responses as well. Chris, what did you use for your video responses? What platform? Thanks, Katie.
You can set up your discussion either to give a written response to it, and then you can also program it to do a video response, but you can, along those lines, program it that they have to respond before they can see other responses. So it gives you a lot of they have to own something before they see everyone else's, which I liked that a little bit better than, we can't use Flipgrid anyway because it's not approved, at least our district, our schools following the policy of no Flipgrid, which really bums me out because everything in digital XP was Flipgrid. So I did like that. I did like that aspect of the discussions where they could do a digital response, and then they could see each other's responses, which was the piece that was missing since we lost Flipgrid. So that was good. I liked that. Also, for discussion stuff, I'm looking at a program called Parlay, and I'm trying to figure out if I want to you get like 3 of them free, and they have really great topics for Socratic seminars and discussions and stuff. So I'm kind of looking at that. I might actually pay to get that one, because they have really great topics like, you know, when are you an adult, or why consult multiple sources and perspectives, or getting the most out of online learning. And they have like an article or a video or something that kicks it off, and then the kids respond to it with the protocols that Parlay uses as a discussion situation. That one on citation and plagiarism that I'm like, I didn't quite get that through that with juniors, and I think I'd really like to do that pretty early with online learning. I feel like that's going to be a hot button thing. Like,
yeah, that's awesome. Anything else that went well, or things that you want to do different in the fall? All right, I will go back to sharing my screen.
And just so you guys know, on the next slide, I've been taking notes. So I took notes from both from last session and this session. So we've got everybody's ideas kind of put on there. And then Katie, is it okay if I put the link?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything that helps us all out, we should share.
Yeah, like it transformed my whole check-in for all of distance learning. It was amazing. So good. So there's our notes from our discussion. I'm gonna briefly touch on e-binders. They are not required. Sorry, one second. Sorry. So we just wanted to give you a couple of resources if you're interested in doing e-binders, the overview video and how to, and how you can use open access to do some focused note taking. But again, they're not required. So we just wanted to make sure that you had the resources if you're interested in delving into e-binders. On slide 16, we've linked some resources that are all fillable. So we've got a planners and reflections section. The planners section has a checklist for grade checks. And then there's multiple templates. So there's some full month, there's by the hour, there's a daily. So there's a ton of different layouts for planners that you can give to kids, and then they can fill them out. The graphic organizers include fillable templates on cause and effect, comparing and contrasting, sequence, claim, and evidence. And then each one has sentence frames and signal words and guiding questions as well. There's some fillable vocab and concept maps. There's some charts for vocab for before and during reading with words, definitions, and examples in a 3-column note format. There's the Freyer model there where you have the word in the middle and then a space for the definition, an example, a non-example, and yeah. And then there's some vocab bookmarks. There's some academic thinking question and answer stems as well, and that's all in vocab and concept maps. And then there's the learning logs. Again, there's a bunch of different formats for the learning logs. There's broken down by days. There's some content specific questions in there. And there's some just blank boxes like we use sometimes for reflections. There's the 3-2-1 fillable form where you have 3 facts, 2 Costas questions, and 1 thing to learn more about. And then the back to school kit is open access, which means that anyone, even people who don't have a MyAvid account, can access the back to school toolkit. It's being updated every 2 weeks, and there's things, there's just a whole ton of resources there for learning in a digital world. There's articles. There's a great article in there about establishing a communication plan with students and parents. There's an article about tips on recognizing student success and encouraging community. And then there's one about increasing equity awareness as well. So there's great articles. There's some short little lesson plans in there. AVID Open Access is awesome. So many resources.
Excellent. All right. And Danica did just join us a few minutes ago. So perfect timing as we go to talk about tutorials, because that's definitely on everybody's mind. So the idea is that we know that we are distance learning through mid-November. Many people, with the exception of maybe like the upper high school, most classes don't get started with tutorials until about that time, kind of late October. Generally. So the thought is that you don't have to try to do tutorials if you don't think that you're ready or your kids are ready in the model that we're in right now. However, we do want to still front load all the information like we normally would at this point. And there's so many things that you can do even without going into full formal tutorials to still have kids practice asking questions, working on, small pieces of the process together. It's more about the exposure than doing the formal format. That being said, there are some teachers who tried it in the spring, and especially like if you've got kids who've been, like our 8th graders or our juniors and seniors who have been in AVID for a couple of years and totally get it, they may be ready and asking for tutorials. We do have tutors that are being trained. Some have already, we've already had e-tutors going in some schools over the past couple of years. So there are people who are ready to go, and it kind of opens up our tutor pool, because now we're not worrying about people having to drive from one place to another, and they may only have like an hour of time. And so that really opens up some things. It also allows us to use some of our high school kids. If they don't have a class at a certain time, you might tap into them, especially at the middle school. You could get some kids, and then it's sort of a 2 birds with 1 stone, that they can get some of their service hours through working with the middle school kids, or even like your seniors working with your freshmen, or however you do that. So some things that you can do for tutorials: you can use Zoom breakout rooms. We're assuming that that's going to be allowed in the district. We haven't heard one way or the other. If I know some people are hesitant about breakout rooms with not being in every room if you don't have a tutor. There's some things that you can do, like if you are working on a shared document, a shared Google Doc, or we put a link to the AW board, which is another app. It's kind of a whiteboard app that you can share with everybody, that they would all have access to the screen. And so the person could log in there, and then you just send them out the link, and then they can work on that. And so I made a template for tutorials, like a 3-column note piece. And so you could use that to share with them. You can also use Jamboard, which is part of the Google Suite, because you can do text boxes on that instead of doing it in the sticky notes. And so that would also work. But the cool thing about that is you would still have access to all of those forms. So even if your kids are in breakout rooms, if you're not in there, you can still scroll through all of either the Jamboards, or look at the AW apps, or the Google Doc, the slides, whatever it is you're working through, and you can see who's doing what they need to do, and that kind of stuff. We can also look at doing more of a CSG style, which is almost tutorials are sort of scaling back a little bit. And so, but the CSGs are definitely a little more, the collaborative study groups are a little less formal. And then we can open that up if anybody else has any other ideas of maybe something that you tried in the spring, or something that's you've been mulling over, trying to figure out how that would work. But hopefully just know that the expectation is not like you don't have to be in full-fledged tutorials, by November like we normally have been. So the AVID police are not coming. Yeah. Danica, I don't know if you want to add anything.
I don't think, I think that, that covers it. We'll, scheduling tutors will work a little differently than it has in the past, in past falls. It'll be more like it was in the spring, where instead of me just posting the entire schedule across the district for tutors to select, I'll be reaching out and saying to you, when you're ready, you know, please give me your schedule, your tutorial schedule, whether that's like once a week you're going to do it, or if you're going to do twice a week, or, you know, if you're going to want someone on call. And then it's like I match you up with somebody who has said they've had they either have the ability to be a regular tutor for you once a week or twice a week, or there's somebody who said, I'm available to be on call. And we had some of our BSD staff actually that are trained tutors that were very willing to be on call in the spring. And so, you know, or we had some that did regular schedule. We had John Bridges, he tutored in a couple different classes over Zoom in the spring. And so we have like a few different pools of people that tutor. So we have BSD staff, and then we have our paid casual labor, which are our college students, which we're working on right now through HR about the rehiring process. Because right now we're on a classified hiring freeze. But we're waiting to see like when that's lifted and when we can hire casual labor again. And then we have our volunteers, of course. And so we're working with community involvement and our legal department, which our legal representation, about that because of the breakout room issue. So that's specifically what they're working through right now, is to figure out whether legally a volunteer could be in a breakout room, not under the sight and sound of you. So I just met with some folks yesterday and we're working through that process right now. So we'll have some tutors. We just don't know from which like of those three pools. They'll either come from all three, they may come from two of those, they may come from one of the three. And then of course, peer tutors, obviously, many of you have worked with peer tutors in the past, so it's pretty similar. Training will look a little different as well, obviously, because we won't have the face-to-face 6 hour, but we do have a self-paced independent study tutorial training that I've had tutors in like really rare circumstances. Like we always want them to come to the face-to-face, so we've only offered it in really rare circumstances, but it's a self-paced kind of like an independent study. They turn in the work after they've gone through and done it. And then obviously we'll have Zoom trainings as well to be able to facilitate online. So I don't know if that answers some questions off the gate, but happy to answer any more if anyone has any.
Show the e-tutorial resources.
Yeah, so these are this is some stuff that Danica had put together before, but it is all of our e-tutorial resources. So there's a digital TRF, and then just kind of going through the norms because they are a little bit different than what we would do in the class. And then planning guide, link to the WAG, and then link to the CSG resources.
And then there's some elective planning resources as well. So on my AVID, we have the WAG, and that is being updated to add more digital resources. So if you have not already, or if you have downloaded the WAG, just keep the days 1 through 30, or maybe days 1 through 60, because they will be updating as we go on with some more digital resources. And then there's some COVID resources as well on my AVID. And then again, AVID Open Access, available to anyone with or without my AVID access. And I set it up above, but there's also some things about making learning accessible, like what we can do for our students and what our students can do for themselves. And then there's some digital learning lessons as well, including some SEL stuff.
And the AVID Open Access, especially for coordinators, that would be, there's some really good resources in there. So if you are tasked with, if your admin is asking you for tips or tricks that you can give to your staff, those would be some great places to check, because they're real kind of short, quick, and easy things with lots of resources there. Okay. All right, so for coordinators, you have access in my AVID. If you go under e-learning and then under Summer Institute Launches and Boosts, there's a new resource there for you called the AVID Secondary Implementation Resource, or ACER. and it's it says East or Beaverton. And so that is a really cool, we looked at it a little bit last year in our collaborations, but it is a really cool resource that AVID has put together for each of the indicators, and it goes through, like, it has the rubric, but then it also talks about what you could use as examples and evidence for each of those items, and it's a lot to dig through, but it is really worthwhile looking through. In the curriculum, also in my AVID, there is the professional learning modules. So we have used quite a few of those at Mountain View. They are set for 90-minute modules, but you can definitely kind of tailor that to meet the needs of whatever you need. But they're really cool because they're already planned for you. So they have a syllabus with all of your talking points listed. It's got all of your resources, handouts that you can download, or links to videos or whatever you need. And then it's got a PowerPoint slideshow already made for you. So you can just download it. Teachers have access to some of them, we found out, but not all of them, but coordinators should have access to all of them. But then Danica's also you've put all of them in the AVID BSD files. Okay. There's a link to your site teams at a glance format. And then we also put the link to the participant handbook and year-round resources. So that's normally our little spiral that we get at Summer Institute. So that is there for your perusal.
All right. We're gonna turn it over to you guys and Danica. Any questions that you have for her?
Danica, I know this is probably a bigger question, but it just feels like so much thinking around and planning for a school year, synchronous versus asynchronous, is so dramatically different. I'm hesitant, given the rate of change in the district on so many different things. We went through some of these things in the high school with athletics. I feel bad for the athletic directors who spent 3 weeks preparing to be allowed to do summer workouts, and then Sunday night before a Monday start, the district pulled the plug on the whole thing. So like, I'm concerned about where I should be spending my time, and if it's hold off and wait and just think and just keep thinking and don't do anything yet, that's okay too. But like, can you give us like any insight from somewhere above my pay grade?
Yeah, I mean, and personally, I feel this way from teaching this summer, that I wish I would have spent more time on my asynchronous stuff to make it more engaging and more interactive. I really wish that's where I would have spent my time, because I felt like the face-to-face, which I have not been told. I met with Brian yesterday, and I have not been told that there is going to not be regular synchronous contact. Right now, I mean, again, I know stuff has changed and morphed and all kinds of stuff, but right now the expectation is that there is going to be synchronous time, that you will be available during those hours that school is like in session, right? But I really do think, even just from a personal standpoint, that the synchronous stuff is going to be so important, because the check-in time and the synchronous portion is really going to be literally just for that, right? Like, check in, like, you're not going to have much time, and then how that interface is, even given the circumstances that that there's always technical issues and things like that happen too. And so I guess, in hindsight, for me, that's where I wish I would have spent more of my time, was really making the asynchronous stuff, like I said, engaging and interactive and interesting. Because I feel like that's where the bulk of the energy needs to go, regardless of how things pan out. But right now we're being told that, the Canvas agreements are going to come out pretty soon. I think they're like, I just saw the draft of it earlier. I was looking at it earlier. So, you know, that's going to be an expectation K-12. It's going to look a little different for elementary than it does for secondary in terms of what's in there. There's going to be like a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Secondary is expected to be in phase 2, working towards phase 3. So I don't know if that answers, Mike, what you're talking, you know, if there's more to that you're looking for.
Oh, that moves the ball up the hill, or the rock up the hill a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly in terms of like what I am working on and what some of my other teammates are working on right now is we're working on building those Canvas modules for content, right? Like, you know, just like you would be for your classes. That's like what I need to get going on, and where I'm going to spend probably a lot of my energy around is making sure that those are very laid out. And kind of like for those of you that were at Digital XP, like I feel like I want my Canvas courses to look like my Canvas course did in Digital XP, because it was so organized in terms of like following along with my person, but then knowing where to go. I mean, I had to scroll a lot and stuff. And
my worry is that they had 12 people who spent 9 months and developed some awesome and, you know, robust, you know, content, synchronous, asynchronous, you know, it was impressive. That to me, I guess, and, you know, we had a meeting with about 9 teachers last week in the administration. It was a really good listening session, but like, you know, one of the big takeaways was just how much time it takes to plan and prepare really impactful, robust digital learning environments. And, you know, like forget about how to do it and what to do, and what tools to use. Just the amount of time to build robust learning environments online is it just seems like a tidal wave that's going to come smashing down on my head. That's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same way. And I think a lot of people are. And I mean, that's why like I have to like lower my expectations of myself, because I want it to be perfect. You know, I want it to be like the best of the best and perfect. And we all do, right? Because we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't. You know, we're not comfortable with putting stuff out there that isn't. So, I mean, the templates are, you know, there will be some guidance around templates and stuff like that you can use, you know, that I'm hoping will be a little helpful in terms of that. But yeah, I mean, I agree. That's why we wanted to have some of these early, so that you could start looking at some of the resources. I mean, I think that's, you know, obviously that's why the extra week was put in, you know, in terms of being able to plan and not have kids start initially like they were going to, you know, right after in-service week too. So not that there's ever enough time, even when we're planning face-to-face, you know what I mean?
But so I don't want to dominate the conversation, but is your sense then that like the amount of synchronous time will be enough for us as AVID teachers to maybe make tutorials or collaborative study groups the focus of our synchronous time, and then the rest of the curriculum is going to be delivered asynchronously?
You know, that's kind of what I'm envisioning. That was my initial thoughts out the gate with it, was that probably the time that you do come together will only be for those like check-ins, you know, connection, like relationship building and strengthening. And then eventually like getting to a place where like, once you feel like, I mean, you're never going to feel ready, but once you feel like maybe they are ready, or they're telling you they're ready, like those are the conversations that they should be having when they're together. Because I think they're going to get confronted with the volume of work, just like they did in the spring, pretty fast. You know, and anything we can do to support them in lowering that anxiety and that amygdala hijack that they're going to have around like just the overwhelm, you know, sense of being overwhelmed with all the email, especially the high schoolers, like the emails they're getting from Canvas and crazy stuff. You know, that was kind of what I envisioned, was those check-in times are really for them to talk through. Now there's lots of asynchronous ways, and some of you have suggested them in the chat, that they can do some of those, you know, just going through the TRF itself, and maybe doing some interaction with each other or with you with that, to get them thinking about some of that, you know, is also really valuable, because they might not be really doing that anywhere else. I mean, honestly. And I don't know how everybody's scheduling it right now, but at least for the high school, I talked with Show yesterday, and like how Southridge is going to schedule it is they're going to do it first and third quarter, or second and fourth, depending on the grade level. And then in those off quarters, the AVID kids are in an AT with their AVID teacher. Now, I don't know across all the high schools if they're going to be able to do that or swing that, but that's what they're looking at, to try to give the kids the support throughout the year, if that makes sense.
So like I have AVID 9 and AVID 12. They ask which one I needed to be with, and I'm like, so I chose the AVID 12s just because they are filling out scholarships and they have constant questions and that kind of stuff. And so the freshmen will be with a different group, and that's going to be problematic for me because I'll only see them 2 quarters out of the year, and then hope for the best in their, in their advisory classes. But yeah,
Well, I think you made the right call on that, Chris, because like you said, I mean,
I have more time with freshmen.
Yeah,
pick up pieces.
Yeah, for sure. The urgency around your 12th graders is, I'd prioritize that too.
Any other questions for Danica?
I have a question. The things like the contracts and that kind of stuff, is there like a digital form of that kind of a situation, or I don't know. I'm just really curious about, like, do we need the photo thing, or can we put some of that stuff off until we're in person, or should we just worry about getting that stuff in right away?
Well, like anything, I mean, I would, the recommendation is going to be to do I mean, I will say that in terms of, and I talked to Brian about this yesterday, like in terms of evidence collection or like things like that, this actually like kind of eases that process a little bit, because everything is so digital that it's actually really easy to collect digital evidence. It's easier than photos and uploading and all that stuff. So, but that's one thing. But yeah, we're going to suggest that the contracts get done out the gate digitally, at least so mainly to really establish that learning partnership between your AVID scholars and their families, really like to strengthen that partnership and initiate that communication. And for that, more than anything, right? More than just the paperwork piece of it. Same thing with like your norms and agreements, right? That you'd want to do that out the gate as a learning community. And do it with your students rather than to or for them, and your families as well. So yeah, Chris, those pieces are all already digital in Google Drive. So it'd just be a matter of like making it more of like a fillable form, so to speak, if you wanted to, which is, there isn't much for the student to fill out. It's mostly all text anyway, and they just sign and like date it and, say they agree. So those are pretty easy to just utilize that way. It'd be interesting because I wonder if in the WAG, if they digitized that and made it a fillable form. I haven't checked yet, but either way, we already have it digitally in Google Drive.
Okay. Yeah. And looking on AVID Educators, that's what a lot of people were doing, was the Google form.
Yeah.
And just having them send that once they did that.
The other thing that I'm going to worry about in the 2-week period is that I'm on a Canvas forum on Facebook as well, and there's just like constant problems of losing their entire course and things getting uploaded by the district, and something changes and they lose all their stuff, and I'm just really hoping that my fingers are crossed that the district has their ducks in a row before they have us start putting things into our modules.
Yeah. And I think part of those issues, those are like newer districts that are just coming online with Canvas. And I feel like, Chris has a pretty good handle on ours since he's been doing it for quite a few years.
I thought maybe it was just because so many districts are on it now and it was overloading the system.
No, I think it's new districts, because there's so many that are brand new this year.
Yeah.
And then have people who are not, not used to doing, they don't realize that when they do one thing, it changes everything.
It's like when we first started using Google Drive and people were like, didn't realize when they deleted or changed the name, you know. And then there, unfortunately, you know, there's districts that can't afford, like Hillsborough couldn't afford it. So like they're still doing Google Classroom and stuff, which I mean, that's not a bad thing, but like, you know, so we're fortunate in that fact. Chris is putting together a really streamlined step-by-step checklist for teachers that's almost done too. So there'll be some ways to just sort of walk, you know, you through. And then of course, all those courses are anytime courses as well as the one that Leah and Bethany did yesterday is an anytime course now. So you can go in and watch the videos and look at the slide deck and all that stuff too, if that's helpful. But that's what in service, you know, a lot of that time is going to be focused around helping folks with those and troubleshooting and making sure that you feel supported with that as well as all the other things.
Danica, do you know when Chris is going to push that out to us or be able to push that out?
I looked at his comments just now. Let me see. I think he said later today. Where was it? It just says working on it in parentheses. So, but it looked pretty, I mean, when I opened it, I was like, well, this looks done. All the secondary guidance is going to come, I think it's going to go to administrators Friday. And then it's going to be pushed out to everybody the following week with all the guidance around all that stuff. Canvas, assessment, grading and reporting, curriculum areas will have all your resources for everything. It'll be like very similar to the spring. So the AVID section will have all the resources for each grade level of the course, middle school, high school. It'll have the school-wide resources. It's just like a one-stop shop for all that stuff. And then of course I'll update the Canvas course as well. Although all those links are still really good and go to all the resources as well. So yeah, well, all that stuff will come to you.
We have an AVID Canvas course?
Yeah, like the one that in the spring, that was just sort of like the landing page that had the links to everything. I'll send the link out to it again. Yeah, it had all the different guidance, like the big kind of like the 6 big areas, like all the guidance around all that stuff. And then the links to like open access and all that good stuff, just so it was all in one place and people didn't have to search around. The secondary guidance document has it all too. It just had more. It was more, I think, probably for coordinators it was useful. But you know, elective teachers, it's great too because it's just got everything sort of in one place. So, because sometimes there's stuff in my AVID that like there's like now with AVID Open Access and then my AVID, like there's different places to go for different things, you know. So I tried to put everything sort of there so that no matter what, if you went there, you could get to the other places that you needed to. Oh, and we can add it to the slide deck too, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Any other questions for Danica?
Danica, I have just like a tech question you may not know, but in the classroom, Clever allows us through Lightspeed to have the Chromebook monitoring software.
Oh yeah.
Do you know if that's something that's been discussed about whether or not we would? I mean, I just, you know, I'm imagining because I have a rising 9th grader, so I know what those tabs look like. You know, I mean, it was awesome, obviously, during study hall or other stuff that happened during class when I just walk over to my computer and close down their Netflix windows. I got some looks in the corner.
I was able to access, like if I was homesick, I could access it last year.
Yeah, no, and there were some things I know in the past that we were not, like if a kid was home, technically, you know, he was homesick, I could see what he was doing if he was logged into his Chromebook. And I think at some point there was a discussion about like there was a legal issue that we can't be doing that, but I'm just sort of thinking through.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm assuming that'll be some of the stuff that'll come out in the guidance around those things too, and as well as like with breakout rooms and stuff. there's also, you know, the district has the list of approved apps that you can use based on whether they've signed our contract in terms of student privacy and data. So be sure you're checking that as well. If you like, that's where like the issue with Flipgrid came up. Like you can't, they have not signed our vendor agreement. So Flipgrid is not, you know, one of those. And so I know there was some people using it and some weren't, and some people were blocked because they tried to push it through Canvas, so that automatically blocked it, but then some were going around Canvas and so it wasn't blocked. So make sure you're checking that as well, because we're in a consortium with some other districts, so it's available online to look at what's approved and what's not.
Do you have the link? Can you put the link up?
Yes, I just got it the other day.
For that.
Yeah, let me grab it real quick.
Yeah, I was trying to get, Chris was using the Book Me to get people to book his with his appointments and stuff. But we're not allowed to use Book Me, and because I was like, I could use that for my orals in Spanish so much, and apparently that's not on the okay list.
Was it like to sign up for times?
Time, yeah, like a 15-minute slot.
You can do that in Canvas.
You can also do it in Google Calendar.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta learn how to do those.
Yeah, because in Canvas you can like open it up to the kids and it shows them. So it's kind of like doing like the Sign Up Genius, where it shows them the times available that you set ahead of time, and then they can go and click in when they want to do it.
So Canvas, or what was the other one?
Google. Yeah, Google Calendar has a function that you can, and I use it in the spring. I had to learn it, but it's not overly complicated. There's a way to set up blocks of time within an event and allow users to schedule.
Yeah, Jamie just added to the chat, when you open up your WAG for, and they have it set up for all of them, when you first open up like the days 1 through 30 for each grade level, there is a Padlet linked to it that you can look, and they have every day. So like days 1 through 30 has a column where people are adding in ways that they have either tweaked or done or whatever they've used like digitally. So it's kind of nice that we're starting much later, you know, almost a month and a half later than other districts. So they're kind of figuring some things out for us in this time. You know, it's a bummer for them that they're kind of going through this, but we're learning a lot from people who have kind of paving the way.
Yeah, that's why definitely don't like download more than 30 or 60 days of the WAG, because they're going in and they're changing stuff all the time in real time. Initially, they were like dropping them like 60 days at a time, and they had dates posted out, but I would even like forego, like even once they've dropped 60 days, I'd still go back in and look, because they're doing all those updates and trying to make them even more accessible for digital, like, you know, learning, for distance learning. So definitely like, just, you know, don't download the whole year. Well, the whole year's not even there. Normally the whole year would be there, but it's not, because they're pushing them out 60 days at a time. So go back and check pretty often. And then on the professional learning modules, so those are those 90-minute PD modules that could be really useful, especially if Wednesdays, it looks like are gonna end up being a collaboration PD day time. I don't know how that's gonna look in terms of time of day. They're working on making a bunch of those more online learning accessible as well. So that's the next thing they're going in and updating, is all those professional learning modules. Those are the ones Leah talked about earlier, that are, you get a PowerPoint, you get a syllabus, you get handouts, everything's ready to go if you're doing anything with your staff. And those are already really, like, they're pretty easy to convert to an online learning environment just as they are, but they're going in and actually doing updates in them to make them accessible to deliver over Zoom or whatever platform you're using. So that's the next thing that they're working on right now as we speak. As soon as they got done with Digital XP, they started working on that.
And Jamie, you mentioned that the WAGs don't look much different. AVID heard that, and so they're even going back now. So even though they released days 1 through 30, they have people who are going back through days 1 through 30 and revamping them again, and adding some things to it because they heard from people that they need more digital resources. So, and then I think that's also where they added in the Padlet so people could share some ideas there as well. So definitely, if you're not, that's one, AVID is very responsive to teachers and coordinators. So if you are not finding something that you really want, let them know. Do the contact, or let Danica know. It's things that she can forward to people, or because they do listen, to what people, to feedback and stuff.
Yeah, like they heard us loud and clear because we were like, we're going to have elective teachers that couldn't attend Digital XP that are brand new. Like you have to offer something in the fall. And originally they weren't going to, and now they have scheduled something September 24th and 25th. So they're being really responsive in terms of the needs. They just need to know the needs, and then they have been doing stuff for us. So that's been good. And we don't know about AVID Weekly at this point. I saw there was a question about that earlier. So they pushed out AVID Weekly for free for everybody in the spring once we shut down. I'm anticipating they'll probably do that again. We did not add AVID Weekly into your contracts because, well, and it was because the usage was very, very low in past years. And so it was a funding issue. But if they do not push it out for free, which I'm kind of hoping they will, then you can certainly add it. And it's $500 or around there. We can either take it out of your building AVID budget, which all of you are going to have a budget. Some of you have NSIF money, so you have plenty of money to pay the subscription fee. So it'll be school-based. And the other reason we did that was because of Newsella, because that usage was really high and it's a great resource. Some people were using that over AVID Weekly, so we didn't make sense to pay for both resources. So, but we do have some schools that really specifically like AVID Weekly for all their teachers to use. So just get in touch with me if you think your team wants to add the subscription if AVID doesn't come out with it for free. Which I'm kind of hoping they will, since they're doing AVID Open Access and all that stuff too.
Will you push that information out once you hear?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And you may even, I mean, the one thing too is like, if we do see, my access in my AVID looks different. Like I probably have AVID Weekly, but that's just because of my role in my AVID. So it just depends on, it probably shows up in my Canvas, but it may not be updated. I'm just checking really quick to see if
it's not updated.
It's not, it's still last year. Yeah, so, cause normally it's really crazy. They usually push it out even when we do pay the subscription. Oh yeah, it's 1920. Even when we do pay for it, they sometimes don't make it live and accessible until literally like the second week of school.
Mm-hmm.
It seems really late considering that other districts start so much earlier in August. I'm always surprised by that. So it may be a wait and see, but I'll ask our program manager too and see if she knows anything ahead of time about that.
The pro-con, there's a website that has a lot of the pro-con stuff for discussion, and so that's not as big a deal, but they were pretty good about putting in stuff that was really specific to like when my seniors needed stuff. There was a lot of great stuff about letters of recommendation and do you need SATs, or I mean, and there's a lot of other articles too, so it's not dire. And I worked on a form that worked out pretty well for them to be able to annotate, and they could highlight and they could annotate in the left-hand margin of questions and observations and stuff. And then I usually would add maybe 5 or 6 questions at the end, level 2 or 3 questions at the end about the article. So I developed a lot of those, and I can recycle last year's, probably.
Yeah,
And Newsella is another great resource
Which
that has great articles that we have access to.
Which one?
Newsella.
Oh yeah. It's funny because Newsella is supposed to be so easy to use, and I always am frustrated by not having the kids access it very well. So
yeah, I'll push out to coordinators for sure when we know more about that. But I talked to them yesterday about it just because we've done that before, though. We've added subscriptions after the school year started in past years too. So we'll just see how much of stuff they're going to make accessible for free and how much are they going to make us pay. We'll see.
All right, so we are going to wrap up this first portion and give you guys some plan time. We'll be online, and I think Danica will stick around for a few minutes if you still have more questions. But we want to make sure that we're giving you at least an hour and a half of some plan time during that time. So if you want to go into a breakout room with somebody, you can either say it or you can put it in the chat, and we will move you into those. If you want to sign off, you are welcome to do that.
I'm going to link to the pay sheet.
Yes, there's a link to the pay sheet at the end. Oh, perfect. Bethany just put it in the chat. It's also at the end of your, at the end of the slideshow, and then it's in the email that I sent out. All right. So Jamie, you're just going to type your name on the pay sheet.
Mm-hmm. And just make sure that you, if it opens up in a tab in your browser, you're not, if you fill it in there, it'll all disappear. So make sure you like download it, fill it out, and then upload it as an attachment to me, and I'll get that processed. No problem.
And please send that to Danica via email, not Google.
Yeah, I know it's a pain, but if you could just upload it in an email to me, it's easier to track, and our accountant likes that better because payroll is pretty strict about some of that stuff.
So, Leah, okay.
Are there any AVID 9s that are meeting up? That's my big question.
I know, I don't know if we have any other AVID 9s.
We had a couple.
Did we have a couple?
Yeah.
Oh, Jeff. He's AVID 9.
Leah, are you doing breakout?
I am. So Jamie, I think Julie left.
There's Julie and Jamie.
Yeah.
Oh.
Julie's not showing up on the list anymore.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I think she ditched you. Sorry. Yeah, you can FaceTime with her. Okay.
And so Jeff.
Okay, so who are we putting in?
Chris, Jeff, and Habak.
Okay.
Just maybe to chat for a few minutes, or just to kind of see what you're thinking. Perfect.
Okay.
And Becky, I'd love to chat when we.
So how do we go? You put us in a room, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
So we'll put you. So Bethany, do I just hit?
Let me
like open all rooms?
No, so it should be. Let me pull up.
Sorry, it's not going to show it for you.
Oh.
Ibak, is she still in here?
Yes, she's still in here.
Yeah.
I just can't see everybody. So.
Sorry, this is my first time doing breakout rooms. I wanted to practice.
We're a good group to practice on.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I'm going to stop recording.
Oh, yes.